Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wind Down Friday. Today, our special guest is Jodi Shelton, the co-founder and the CEO of the Global Semiconductor Alliance, GSA. Hi, Jodi. Welcome aboard. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be chatting with you this morning.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for being here. Where are you located, Jodi?
I'm actually right now I'm in Dallas, Texas. So that's always a difficult question because I'm always somewhere different. So, but I am in Dallas, my hometown right now.
Good. So, Jodi, you have been a driving force behind the Alliance remarkable growth and impact on the global semiconductor industry. So your career is an inspiring story of vision and impact. So my first question, what motivated you to co-found the GSA and how has your mission evolved over the years?
Okay. So, when I originally founded this organization, we launched it as the Fabless Semiconductor Association. So that was in 1994. So last year was our 30th anniversary. It's actually really hard to believe. But at that point in time, in 1994, Fabless was really almost like a heretical idea. You had all these young burgeoning companies, but they were faced with skepticism and disrespect and doubt and lack of investment.
Mm,
So remember that this was the same year that Jerry Sanders made the very now infamous statement that real men have fabs. So at that point, my hypothesis was that if you put all of these small companies together, they would have a much bigger impact than they would alone. So, kind of united, they would have a voice. Like, for example, one of our first projects was to do a wafer demand survey. Okay, so what that meant is that it wasn't just one company asking for wafers from TSMC
yeah.
or at that point in time, IBM and Texas Instruments. But if you combine their wafer demand, suddenly they look like a pretty meaningful force. And that, this alone would help change the industry.
Mm,
And the truth is that we did change the hearts and minds of the industry and of Wall Street, and ultimately not only legitimize this model in a very intentional and purposeful way, but in fact, we proved it to be the preferred business model for an efficient and profitable business. So then, as the industry grew and diversified, so did our mission. So we shifted gears and we transitioned to the Global Semiconductor Alliance. Again, a much broader vision, uniting the entire global semiconductor supply chain. So IP, EDA, foundry, assembly, test, packaging, everybody was included at the table. And again, across the globe. That was at that point in time, it was a pretty big deal. And so we became the GSA. And so the G in GSA is very important. It means global. And that again was a huge pivot. And still today, that really is a distinction for our organization. So the other thing that we did is we moved from using the word association to alliance. So we were no longer just sort of a group of random fabless companies, but companies whose objectives and future were aligned. So the concept of sharing the innovation burden through collaboration, it has translated into a healthy, profitable, and growing industry. And here we are today, right? And then the other thing that we did only about 5 years ago was we broadened even further to include the kind of non-traditional hardware companies.
mhm.
So companies like Microsoft and Meta and Google, Amazon, Tesla, these companies that have a huge impact on the supply chain, but aren't traditional. I mean, their main business is not semiconductors. So that was a huge change and been hugely successful for us. All these companies having a seat at the table is, I think, really important. Of course, you also know that a few years ago, we launched the Women's Leadership Initiative to address the critical need for attracting, retaining, and promoting women because there is a huge pressure on talent in this industry. And there's no reason to believe that that is not going to continue. And so you really can't ignore 50% of the population if you want to become a trillion-dollar industry. So I think that that's one of the most important things we've done in the last few years. And but all along, our mission is collaboration, enabling innovation, profitability, advancing semiconductors, and really promoting semiconductors, which, again, we've been doing for 30 years, even when we weren't the most popular segment for Wall Street or really anybody else.
So, talking about women in technology, so the GSA Women's Leadership Initiative is a game changer for diversity in technology. So, what progress have you seen in promoting women in leadership? What challenges
Okay.
still need to be addressed?
Yeah, I think that to be totally honest, most the progress that we've made is really sort of anecdotal at this point. Like I can't necessarily say that, we moved from 12% representation to 20% representation, but there is a complete different feeling from both women and the industry in general
Yeah.
about women than there was 5 years ago. So, a great example is that one of the I think most important things that are events that we created was an event called Wish, so Women in Semiconductor Hardware.
Yeah.
And it started out 4 years ago. We had a couple of hundred people. So we just had an event in Silicon Valley in November with 900 women. And so it was really, really remarkable. I think that those 900 women were as surprised as we were that there are so many people, so many women that are dedicated to this industry, that are real innovators and mavericks and technologists. And for the most part, a lot of times in their company, they're one of just a few. So to just suddenly be around all these women was really very exciting for them. And like I say, it just feels different. My Rolodex now is full of women. And so I often tell this story. It's actually kind of embarrassing, but right before, I mean, what really was the impetus to starting this group was I do these VIP board dinners a couple of times a year. And this guy comes in, sits next to me, and he's like, "Wow, Jodi, this is like the least diversified dinner I've been to in Silicon Valley." And that's saying a lot. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe a man is having to tell me this. So really, I had become very accustomed to being one of either a few women, many times the only woman in the room. And I had just accepted this as a matter of fact.
Mm.
And literally, that was in September of 2019. And by December, we had started WLI. So we started it with an award at our annual awards dinner called Women of Influence. And we opened it up for applications and nominations. And I was shocked at these nominations. These women were incredible, had made, many of them had dozens, sometimes even hundreds of patents to their name. And I had not ever met any of them. And by the way, not only that, they had never met each other. So this was really a huge shift for us. And again, I think that even if it's just anecdotally, it has changed because of that. And whether it's the Wish event or whether you look at our executive events, suddenly there are twice, sometimes three times as many women as there ever have been before. And sometimes that still doesn't mean too many. So what we're really trying to do is increase the pipeline. So we're doing university programs that we go in and get young women, and by the way, we don't exclude men from attending these events. So just get people at the universities in general very excited about this being an industry that they can have an amazing career. They can make a huge difference and have fun. They're technologists, so people like working on really hard problems. And of course, as you know, semiconductors is full of hard problems. And so it's really quite exciting. So it's amazing at these universities that people are, oh, I hadn't thought about semiconductors before. And remember that the people we go in and target are already on a STEM path. And so, they're already, going that direction. And so we just give them a little nudge towards hardware. And so then once the women are in, we're really focused on retaining,
Mhm.
developing, and promoting women. So we have dozens of programs, including the one I told you about for Wish, but one that we're really excited about that we're starting this year is an executive accelerator program. So kind of like a mini MBA, very, very focused on semiconductors that women can, they don't have to leave their jobs to go to university, do it. It's comes to them basically. So this is a program that we're really excited about that we'll launch, hopefully in the first half of the year. And it's very exciting because Matt Murphy, the CEO of Marvell, is helping to fund this personally. So he is very, very committed not only to promoting women, but also really just to help promote and inspire and prepare the next generation of leaders. So it's very, very exciting. And again, we'll start that this year.
Great, thank you. So, leaders, talking about leadership. So, great leaders are often shaped by important, fundamental lessons along the way. So, what's for you? What's the most important leadership lesson that you have learned during these years? How has it influenced your approach?
Okay. So it's pretty interesting when I first started doing this. Again, I was in my 20s as I was just starting my career and started again FSA at that point, the Fabless Semiconductor Association. And I remember one of my mentors, a guy by the name of Dr. Robert Pepper, used to be the CEO of a company called Level One that was bought by
Mhm.
Intel. And I remember one day he said to me, Jodi, I think that your real superpower is your ability to really listen to what people are saying. And I was like, really? I mean, that's my gift. And it was kind of disappointing. And now that I look back on it, I do think it's the most important part of leadership. And it's listening to every part of the conversation. So again, many times I'm running, board meetings with 25 people, and you're trying to find the nuggets of what people agree on and what they're aligned on. And so I do think that at the end of the day, one of the most important parts of leadership is listening. And you have to remember that I have a unique perch in this industry that I'm so fortunate to have, but I get to be around all of these amazing super leaders and get to learn from them, work with them, listen to them. And, you know, I was thinking about this question, and so many of the super leaders, what the things that they've taught me ultimately comes back also to listening, which
Mm.
again is very unique. I again, I get to I've known Dr. Morris Chang my entire career, and I remember one time Morris said to me that it really bugs him for someone to be sitting in a meeting with him, especially a one-on-one meeting, but even if it's more sort of taking copious notes. And I was like, why is that? And he said, because you're missing out on really listening to the messenger and what the big picture or the whole picture is instead of any one factoid. So at the end of the day, that lesson was on listening, right? And then, of course, another person that I've known my entire career is Jensen Huang. And one of the things, well, I've learned many, many things from him, but one of the things, again, that comes back to this idea of listening
Mhm.
is that when Jensen is with you, he's 100% committed. Like he's not looking at his watch, he's not looking at his phone, he's not you think you're the most important person in his life. I mean, he's really giving you the time, he's really present. And so that's both, kind of listening and just overall respect for other people. And so I've taken that lesson. And then I guess one of the third person that I have learned so much from in my career on leadership specifically is Art DeGius. And I remember one time Art said to me that you measure the success of a meeting, or a person measures the success of a meeting by how many times they heard their own voice. And so you think, okay, well, is that an ego thing? And it's not really. It just comes back to the fact that people want you to listen. They want you to respect and care what they're saying. And the truth is I love my job and I love this industry so much. And I think that, you know, people see that and they know that I honestly care. And I mean, I've spent my entire career promoting this industry and showing people how appreciated they are and how that what they do matters. And remember that it's only been maybe in the last 5 or 6 years that people cared about semiconductors the way they do today. So today, the whole world sees the industry as I've always believed it to be. Uh, but remember, again, 6 years ago, people thought of this as sort of foundational technology. They thought of it as a mature industry. There wasn't a lot of love, and I think that that is what I brought to it is a lot of love. I love this industry. I care about it, and again, I think that people like being appreciated.
So talking about for a bit beyond your job. So when you are leading a global organization like GSA, but also for CEO, general manager, finding time to relax is important, it's crucial. So which are your hobbies? What hobbies, activities do you like during the weekend? Find inspiration also.
Okay. Yeah, I think that the semiconductor industry is a whole different level of crazy
Hmm.
and it consumes you. And luckily, I love my job and I love what I do because if not, I think I'd go crazy. And the chances are that most CEOs, not every day of the week, but really love what they do because there's just no way you can keep this pace if it's not exciting and interesting and all of that. But the truth, I mean, I have a lot of hobbies and interests outside of the industry. Um, I'm an avid reader. I love historical fiction or modern history. People like Steve Cole or Lawrence Wright. I'm also an aspiring writer. I finished my first novel actually at the end
Nice.
of last year and trying to get it published this year. So be on the lookout for that. I'm a runner. I mean, nothing too serious, but it's one of my favorite things to do. I ski. I love to travel. I love learning about new cultures and making new friends. And actually, one of the coolest things that I've been able to do in my career was I spent a year in China. And so to this day, I have so many Chinese friends. I China has a special place in my heart. I kind of like to think of myself as a diplomat. So it's sort of no matter what the policies are, all the white noise around us, ultimately it's about people and friendships and innovation and technology really don't know any boundaries, ethnicities or genders or any of that kind of stuff. And so it's the great, really, really one of the best parts of my job. I also like to think of myself as a humanitarian. I spent about 10 years going to Haiti every single year, building schools and getting to know the Haitian culture.
Hmm.
And so, of course, it's very sad for me to see what is going on right now. I also spent time with Syrian refugees a number of years ago. So, obviously, very, very excited about that. So many of them are going to be able to return to Syria, and all of us are hopeful for how that turns out. And very pretty optimistic also. And then I think also I'm very creative. I mean, my job requires me to be creative, but I'm creative in my personal life as well. And that takes a lot of downtime and a lot of silence and time being alone. But I really like that as well.
Good. So, Jody, we are in conclusion. My last
Oh,
question.
okay.
Just back to
Okay.
the semiconductor industry.
Okay.
So the semiconductor supply chain is a critical piece of
Mhm.
today's global economy. So what do you see as the most pressing challenge in the semiconductor industry? How can organizations like GSA can help in this regard? So what key message you would like to leave to our community?
Well, I think that, I mean, there are certainly a lot of geopolitical tensions, fluctuating demand cycles, um, a lot of changes happening in the industry that really require sustainable practices. So there are a lot of challenges. And I think that a lot of the unknowns are the scariest part, okay? Because it is so hard to run a business with unknowns, whether it's, are there going to be tariffs? Are we going to continue this sort of Cold War with China, or will there be some thawing of that relationship? These are all super important to the semiconductor industry. And so we're all sort of just, waiting with bated breath on what's going to happen over the next 4 years. We like to remain optimistic, but at the same time, people have to run their businesses. So they really need to understand how that these tensions
Hmm.
affect their business and have to act accordingly. So if we had a perfect world, we would kind of go back to this whole idea of a flat world and be able to have open trade, have respect for IP, have go to where the most efficient possible manufacturing is. But the world is different today. Okay, so there's there, as all sorts of goals about regionalization. And so we just have to be respectful of that and have to understand that and have to build that into business models. So I think that it's a super challenging time for the industry, maybe more so than at any other time. But we'll get through it. People will make sure that their companies are prepared for it
Hmm.
as long as we continue to have more information. So for the GSA, it's about sometimes it is simply about identifying the challenge. Okay. Sometimes we don't have the answer to it, but if we all put it out on the table and understand what the challenges are, then people can manage their businesses accordingly. So
Indeed.
again, we're hopeful that the next few years will be positive for this industry. It's certainly positive from an innovation standpoint. The most exciting time to be in the semiconductor industry ever. And again, I work with some people that have been doing this even longer than I have, if that's possible. And they're more excited than ever. They don't want to retire. They want to continue to create and innovate because they're seeing the results of technology adoption in a way that they never have before. I mean, again, you look at Jensen Huang, right? He's been doing this almost exactly as long. Well, been in the industry longer than I have, but NVIDIA started the year before GSA did. And you think that Jensen wants to settle down or retire anytime soon. He's having the time of his life because innovation is having the time of its life.
Exactly. So, Jodi, thanks a lot for your time. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so
You
much.
too. You too, and looking forward to maybe meeting in person at some point in time and continue to work together.
Sure, sure. I wish you a great weekend and stay in touch. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye.